Ever have one of those weeks where you're just on fire? Every project turns to gold, your relationships feel easy, and you're completely unstoppable. Then, the next week, you can barely drag yourself out of bed. Your motivation has vanished, and everything feels like an uphill battle. Sound familiar? What if I told you this wasn't just random chance? What if there was a philosophical principle at play? One described in a mysterious text from the early 20th century known as the Kybalion. This book outlines what it calls the principle of rhythm, presenting it as a cosmic pendulum that shapes our experience of life. And once you understand this concept, you start seeing it everywhere. The wisdom in the Kybalion is part of a tradition known as Hermeticism, which traces its spiritual lineage back to the legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus. You can just call him the thrice great. This ancient sage was so revered that he was seen as a god of wisdom by both the Egyptians and the Greeks. For centuries, these ideas were closely guarded, passed from teacher to student. Many have given their lives to make sure this knowledge would survive. Then, in 1908, a book called the Kybalion appeared, written by 3 anonymous authors who called themselves the Three Initiates. It was the first time this esoteric philosophy was presented so openly to the public. And within its pages is the principle they believed was the key to understanding the cycles of our lives, the principle of rhythm. The Kybalion states it plainly. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. For the authors, this wasn't just poetry. It was a blueprint for reality. Imagine a giant cosmic pendulum always swinging. From high to low, creation to destruction, rise to fall. This principle suggests that nothing ever truly rests. Everything is in constant motion between two poles. From this perspective, the very moment something reaches its peak, it begins its journey back down. And from the lowest point, it must begin its swing back up. It's presented as an unbreakable, universal pattern. Once you start looking for this pattern, you can begin to see it as a metaphor for things all around you. On a grand scale, you see it in the rise and fall of civilizations. You see it in the boom and bust cycles of the economy. You see it in the turning of the seasons and the ebb and flow of the ocean's tides. But more importantly, the philosophy suggests this rhythm operates inside of you. It proposes that our moods, energy levels, and creativity are all subject to a similar rhythmic swing. While modern psychology and biology explain these fluctuations through neuroscience, Hermetic philosophy offers a different lens. It suggests the intense joy you feel is balanced by a capacity for sorrow. That week of incredible productivity is often followed by a period of necessary rest. It's a natural cycle as predictable as day following night. So why does it feel so terrible when we're at a low point? Why do we feel stuck? According to this philosophy, it's because we don't understand the nature of the swing. We choose to fight the natural swing, which must simply be. We over-identify with where the pendulum is at any given moment. When we're on the downswing, we believe we are that low point. We think the feeling is permanent. We fight it and despair over it, believing we're just victims of bad luck. But as the book says, chance is but a name for a law not recognized. Feeling stuck is simply being at the bottom of the swing without the wisdom to know that it must eventually swing back. But what if you didn't have to be thrown around by these waves? What if you could learn to surf them? If this idea of taking back some control resonates with you, make sure you subscribe, because learning to work with this law is what the ancient Hermetists considered a true secret of mastery. The secret, according to the Kybalion, isn't to try and stop the pendulum. They say that's impossible. The key is to use a Hermetic technique they call the law of neutralization. This is the art of mentally rising above the swing. Imagine you're standing on the ground Watching that pendulum swing back and forth, you're at its mercy. But what if you could mentally elevate yourself to the pivot point, the spot where the pendulum hangs from? From there, you could observe the swing without being carried away by it. This is a mental skill achieved through conscious awareness. The teaching goes that when you feel the pendulum begin its swing into a negative state, like sadness or frustration, you don't have to go with it. You can anchor yourself in your higher awareness, rise above the unconscious pull, and let the negative swing pass beneath you. You don't deny that the low points exist, but you can refuse to let them define your entire state of being. The pendulum of life will always swing. Highs will be followed by lows, and lows by highs. That much feels true in anyone's experience. But with a philosophical framework like this, you no longer have to be a passive passenger. You have a map. You can use the low tides for rest and reflection, and you can ride the high tides with purpose and energy. The rhythm no longer has to secretly run your life. It can become a tool you use with wisdom. The only question left is, will you be the pendulum's victim? Is it something to be mastered? Leave a comment below so that others might find courage in your decision to use these swings instead of fighting them. Thanks for watching.